In a world full of noise, a 5-year-old deaf girl heard something no one else could. A silent cry for help. On her way back from school, she found a powerful millionaire lying unconscious on the road, and without uttering a single word, she changed his life forever. This is not just a story of rescue. It's the story of a little angel who never heard a sound, yet saved a life with her heart. A cold-hearted millionaire who believed in power finally met the one soul who needed no words to teach him love, kindness, and humanity. Stay with me till the end, because today, silence will speak louder than any voice. 5-year-old Doris sat near the window of the yellow school bus, her small hands tightly holding the straps of her faded pink school bag. Her blonde hair framed her innocent face, but her eyes, they carried a quiet depth far beyond her age. She did not giggle with the other children, nor did she turn when they shouted or argued over seats. Doris lived in a world of silence, where laughter had no sound and noise had no meaning. Outside, trees rushed past, children's houses blurred into colors, but Doris sat perfectly still, staring out as if searching for something no one else could see. While the bus echoed with songs and jokes, Doris watched birds flying freely in the open sky, wondering if their wings knew silence like she did. She felt every bump of the bus, every turn, every brake, not through sound, but through movement. The world spoke to her in vibrations. A sudden jolt made the bus tremble. Thump! Thump! The other children screamed or shouted, but Doris only blinked, confused. She saw their mouths moving, faces changing, but she heard nothing. The bus came to a shuddering halt. The driver cursed under his breath and stepped outside, glancing at the flat tire. Children groaned in frustration, complaining about being late. Some laughed, some shouted. To Doris, it was all silent chaos. She turned her gaze back out the window, and in that moment, the world seemed to freeze. There, across the road, lay a man. He wasn't moving, he wasn't sitting. He was collapsed flat on the sidewalk, his sky-blue suit catching the sunlight like a broken mirror. His arm was limp, his head turned slightly, eyes closed. No one else noticed him. No one else cared. But Doris did. Her heart, small yet fierce, began to pound inside her chest. She didn't know who he was. She didn't know why he was there. But something was wrong. Terribly wrong. She looked around. None of the laughing children saw him. The driver was busy with the tire. The world was blind to him, but not Doris. She felt an invisible pull, a call only her silent heart could answer. Without a word, without a sound, she slipped from her seat. Her feet touched the bus floor softly. No one noticed. She quietly pushed the door lever and stepped down onto the road. Not a single voice called her back. The air was still. Each step she took felt heavier than the last. She could feel her heartbeat in her fingers. Her tiny shoes tapped against the pavement, but she heard nothing. She moved closer to him. His face was pale, his lips slightly parted. His suit, expensive, elegant, meant he was someone important. But lying there, he looked lost, helpless, human. Doris knelt beside him, her hands shaking. She didn't know his name, she didn't know his story. But in that silent moment she felt it. Fate had brought her here. Little Doris didn't know. The man she found was not just anyone. He was about to change her life forever. But first, she had to save his. Doris reached him breathlessly, her tiny shoes stopping just inches from the motionless figure. She didn't know his name, but the sky-blue suit told her he was someone important, someone who wasn't meant to be lying on the ground like this. The sunlight shimmered over the polished fabric, but his skin looked lifeless. This was William Carter, 36 years old, a powerful millionaire CEO known across the city for his strict rules, cold decisions, and unreadable eyes. He built empires, signed deals worth millions, and commanded boardrooms with a single glance. But today, all that power was gone. There was no suit strong enough to protect him, no wealth to lift him. He was just a man, fragile and fallen. Doris's heartbeat echoed through her chest like thunder, though she heard nothing. She watched his lips, hoping to see them move. She waited for a breath, a flicker, anything. But he remained still. Slowly, with trembling courage, she lowered herself to her knees beside him. His hand lay open on the pavement. With her small fingers, she gently touched it. Cold, no response. Fear crawled through her stomach. What if he was gone? She didn't scream, she couldn't, but her soul stirred with silent panic. She looked around, still no one saw. The bus was far behind. She was entirely alone. Then she noticed something. His phone half slipped from his pocket. The screen lit with missed calls and messages. She didn't know what they said, but she knew this device could bring help. Her hands shook as she picked it up. She had never used such a phone before, but instinct guided her. She pressed numbers. 911. She couldn't speak. She couldn't say, "Help him." But she believed. Someone would hear something. She held the phone close to his chest, hoping a breath, a heartbeat, a whisper would reach the other side. The call stayed open. Minutes felt like hours. She looked at his face. His brows were slightly furrowed, as if fighting a battle inside a dream. She reached out and placed her tiny hand over his heavy, lifeless one. And she waited. No words, no cries, only a silent prayer. The world around her faded. Traffic moved, leaves rustled, distant voices echoed. But in Doris's heart, time stopped beside this stranger. She wouldn't leave him. She didn't know who he was, but she felt it deeply. He needed her, and she had chosen to stay. But fate was already moving. Help was on the way. And when William opened his eyes, the first thing he would see was the little angel who refused to walk away. William's world returned in fragments, blurs of white light, the faint coldness of oxygen against his lips, the rolling sway of the ambulance floor. For a man who always walked with certainty, who signed documents worth millions with unshaking hands, this weakness felt foreign. He tried to move, but his limbs refused. All he saw were shadows and flickering lights above him. Voices floated around him, but they felt distant like echoes underwater. Then one voice broke through. "Sir, a little girl called 911 for you." His eyelids fluttered. A little girl? He tried to speak, but his throat ached, his voice barely a rasp. "A child? Saved me?" The ambulance doors burst open. A rush of cool air, wheels turning, nurses moving. William, usually surrounded by assistants and guards, was now at the mercy of strangers' hands. They rushed him into the hospital, machines beeping around him. Time slipped. When he opened his eyes again, he was in a hospital room. Soft sheets, a pale ceiling, silence except for the hum of machines. His body felt heavy, his head spinning. He pressed a hand to his chest. Alive. He turned his head and froze. Across the corridor, through the glass panel, sat a small girl on a waiting chair. Blonde hair, pink school bag, tiny legs dangling, her shoes swinging without rhythm. Her expression calm, almost peaceful. She didn't fidget, she didn't cry. She just waited. Something inside him shifted. This child, so unaware of the world's noise, had heard his need. He stood, slowly, ignoring the nurse's protest, and walked toward her. Every step felt unreal. She lifted her head. Their eyes met. Her gaze, clear, soft, unafraid, held him still. He sat beside her. For the first time in years, the mighty William Carter didn't know what to say. Words felt small, useless, but he whispered anyway, voice fragile. "Thank you." She only blinked, no change in her face. Then gently she smiled. Not because of his word, but because she recognized kindness. A nurse approached quietly and leaned in. "She's deaf, sir," she murmured. William's breath caught. Deaf? That meant his words, his gratitude, meant nothing to her. Yet she had saved him. Not with sound, not with speech, but with heart. He looked at her again, truly looked. For the first time in his life, the man who believed power was everything felt small before a child. Not a word was spoken between them, but something invisible passed, something greater than language. William didn't know it yet. But this silent child was about to become the loudest presence in his life. A presence he could never walk away from. The world outside William's skyscraper continued to move as always, cars rushing, phones ringing, deals closing. But inside his glass-walled office, everything felt strangely still. The city that once thrilled him now felt distant, blurry. The boardroom table covered with contracts, the emails demanding decisions, all faded in importance. He sat in silence, staring at his reflection in the window. Not the strong CEO, not the feared businessman, just a man who had been pulled back from death by a child who could not even hear his voice. Why her? Why did she stay? She owed him nothing. He couldn't escape her face. The way she sat quietly in the hospital chair, swinging her legs, unaware she had shaken the world of a man untouchable by emotion. He felt something unfamiliar inside him, something he had silenced long ago, care. He made calls, not for business, for her. He found the school she attended, a public school with no special programs. He searched her records, and what he discovered made his chest tighten. Doris Williams, foster care child, no stable parents, no guardians who truly understood her, little support, no speech therapy, barely any sign language training. She had been surviving in pure silence, not by choice, but by abandonment. The man who once believed weakness was unforgivable felt his heart tremble. How could she, with so little, give so much? For the first time in his life, he canceled meetings, without explanation. Assistants panicked, shareholders complained. William didn't care. He left the skyscraper not as a CEO, but as a man on a mission. He visited her school. Children played outside, their laughter unheard by the one he searched for. And then he saw her. On a bench, quiet, hugging her pink bag, watching butterflies flutter by. She saw him, her head tilted, eyes wide. Recognition, not fear, not confusion, just calm curiosity. Slowly, he approached, not with the confidence of a tycoon, but with the hesitation of someone stepping into sacred ground. He sat beside her, silent. He didn't know sign language. He didn't know how to speak to her world. So he used the one thing he could. He pulled out a small white card. On it, in neat handwriting, "Thank you for saving me." She looked at the card, then at him. And then she smiled. It was not a loud smile, not a dramatic one. It was pure, gentle, like sunrise after a storm. In that moment, he felt it. This child, unheard by the world, had spoken the loudest truth into his life. His empire, his money, his pride, none of it mattered. Only this silent connection did. But William had no idea. Saving her life was never the end. Destiny had prepared a bridge between their worlds, one that would change them both forever. Days slowly turned into weeks, and the rhythm of William's life began to change. The powerful CEO who once lived by calendars and contracts now lived by the quiet hope of a simple visit, to see a little girl who couldn't hear him, but somehow understood him deeper than anyone ever had. Each time he arrived at the school or her foster home, Doris's eyes would find him. She never ran, never shouted his name. She simply watched, with that calm, knowing look, as if she expected him. And without a word, he would sit beside her. He began bringing small gifts, not expensive jewels or grand toys, but things she could feel and understand. Picture books filled with colors. Drawing pads so she could speak through shapes. Learning cards with simple signs and letters. She would open them carefully like treasures and nod in silent appreciation. But William didn't stop there. Alone in his penthouse at night, he sat in front of his mirror, slowly practicing sign language. It was clumsy, His fingers trembled. He made mistakes. The man who mastered business now struggled with a single hand movement. But he tried. For her. One afternoon, as they sat under a tree in the schoolyard, she looked directly at him. Her lips moved slowly, carefully forming the words. "Why do you come?" She didn't hear her own voice, but she felt her question. William inhaled. His fingers shook as he attempted the signs he had rehearsed countless times. "Because you heard me when no one else did." She blinked. A soft breeze brushed her hair. She didn't understand every gesture, but she understood his heart. She did not need ears to feel sincerity. She didn't reply with signs or words. Instead, she opened her drawing pad. Her tiny hands moved with intent. He watched silently. She drew him, lying on the ground in a sky-blue suit. Then she drew herself beside him, a little girl holding his hand. Beneath the drawing, with shaky letters, she wrote, "Friend." William's breath hitched. His throat tightened. He blinked rapidly, but tears still blurred his vision. A single word, a word he had long forgotten the meaning of, now ripped through him with more force than any boardroom speech. In all his life, meetings, luxury, wealth, no one had ever given him something so pure. He reached out, gently touching the paper, then looked at her. She smiled, not because he was rich, not because he was powerful. She smiled because he stayed. He realized then, she wasn't just a child he owed gratitude to. She was the only person who had seen him not as a CEO, but as a man. But destiny had one more miracle prepared. William believed he was helping Doris. He had no idea she would be the one to save him again, this time not from death, but from loneliness. Months passed, and the seasons quietly changed. But one thing remained constant. William never left Doris's side. He attended her therapy sessions, not as an observer, but as a learner. He learned to sign slowly, humbly, letting her teach him. She would tap his hand gently when he made a mistake, her silent giggle brightening the room more than any laughter could. He didn't adopt her, not because he didn't love her, but because he respected her strength. She was not someone to be rescued. She was someone to be honored. So instead, he became her guardian of dreams, her silent protector. He gave her what the world had refused: opportunity, dignity, and a future. He funded her education, enrolled her in the best speech and sign programs. But he didn't stop at Doris. Something within him had awakened, a mission greater than business. He began visiting schools, meeting children who lived in silence, children who the world had forgotten. And with each child, he saw a reflection of Doris, brave souls hidden behind quiet eyes. He donated millions, not for glory, not for headlines, but for schools of inclusion, therapy centers, and scholarships under a single name. The Doris Foundation, where silence speaks. One day, he stood on a stage before hundreds, CEOs, educators, officials, all expecting the powerful William Carter. But what they saw was a changed man. No arrogance, no distance, just raw truth. He held a card in his hand like the one he first showed her. He spoke slowly, voice filled with emotion. "The greatest hero I ever met couldn't even hear me call for help." Gasps. Silence. Some eyes brimmed with tears. He continued, "I once built businesses. I chased profit. I believed strength was loud and weakness was silent. But I was wrong. Strength can be silent. Courage can be small. And heroes can be 5 years old." That day, America listened. Doris, now sitting in the front row, watched him. She couldn't hear his speech, but she saw his eyes, his hands, his heart. She didn't need sound to know. He was speaking for her. For all of them. She lifted her hands and signed, a gesture they had practiced together. "Friend, forever." William's voice broke. He signed back, clumsy, slow, but filled with devotion. "Thank you for hearing me." He had once ruled empires. Now he served hearts. He once measured success in profits. Now he measured it in smiles. Doris, the silent girl, had become his loudest purpose. She taught America a truth it had long forgotten. That true kindness needs no sound, and the greatest change begins with listening, even to those who cannot speak. A final message to America. In a world that often judges strength by volume, Doris proved, you don't need a voice to be heard. You don't need power to save a life. All you need is a heart willing to stay.